Yep. Good evening and welcome to the Town of Douglas Planning Board meeting for Thursday, April 14th, 2022. Time is now 7 p.m. First item on the agenda, citizens forum, call for public comment. Anyone in the audience would like to speak for 2 minutes for public comment? I can recognize you now, name and address. And board, we're not going to be responding, it's just public comment, just commenting and acknowledging the comment.
Yeah, you don't have to respond.
Somebody's, trying to talk.
Miss Lawrence, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, thank you. This is Jean Lawrence, 119 Shore Road. I just wanted to comment, I'm sort of in dialogue with Mr. Benoit about trying to arrange a forum in which different components of the Douglas County administration could be present to help address some of the issues that have risen on Shore Road as a consequence of development decisions. And I understand part of that will be on the agenda tonight with the solar farm. But, I just think it's hard for people to make connections to all of the involved parties. And so things kind of keep slipping between the cracks. And in general, I think it would be very helpful if there was a public session that explained some of the decisions and the processes, so that people won't be cynical. Because I think there are a lot of people that might not show up for meetings because they don't think it's going to do any good. So anyway, if there was a time where you could put on an agenda, a meeting that maybe I could try to negotiate with Mr. Benoit what would be involved, I would appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. We will be discussing as ongoing development, a 5A on our agenda also. Okay, next item on the agenda, public hearing, 7 o'clock, zoning modifications to Douglas zoning bylaws in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 5. The Town of Douglas Planning Board will hold public hearings on Thursday, April 14th, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Douglas Municipal Center, Resource Room, 29 Depot Street, Douglas, Mass. for a purpose of reviewing proposals and amendments to the following Town of Douglas zoning bylaws. 7 p.m. adoption of new Section 6.8 residentially scaled and commercially scaled solar energy systems. 7:05 p.m. removal of Section 8.4 temporary moratorium of the regulation and taxation of marijuana act. 7:10 p.m. amendments of Section 9.4 site plan review subsections 9.4.2 and 9.4.4. 7:15 p.m. amendments of Section 10.0 definitions, new definitions for building elevation and building height. The complete text of the proposed zoning articles can be obtained and/or reviewed during normal business hours at the Town of Douglas, Town Clerk, and the Douglas Planning Board, both located at 29 Depot Street in Douglas, Mass. Place Tuesday, March 29th, Tuesday, April 5th, 2022. Who is going to be here presenting?
I'll do all.
Okay, all right. So you want to start with the solar?
Sure.
You need a motion to open.
Thank you, sir.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion made by Jake, Mr. Schultzberg.
Second.
Second by Mr. Greco. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the first article, these aren't in article order, but this is Article 14 proposed for the May 2nd spring annual town meeting warrant. This is for the residentially scaled and commercial scaled solar energy systems. I understand that the board, has seen this already because we did review it together before sending it off to the Board of Selectmen for consideration for this public hearing. The overall purpose of establishing this bylaw is because Douglas does not have any mechanisms governing solar development in town at all, other than that it does require a special permit for a certain size array, but it doesn't cover things like stormwater management, the requirements for site plan review, utility notifications, dimensional height, lot requirements, safety, environmental standards, maintenance, abandonment, decommissioning, and many of the things that would protect the town and the development, should a development come to town and want to develop here. So I could get into the nitty-gritty of this if you'd like, but one thing I would like to do is acknowledge that Carol Gogolinski is here, who was representing the Finance Committee when we reviewed this earlier this week, and she raised a handful of questions and comments with regards to the language that had already been vetted by town council. It was one of our requirements, things that we had to do, but she had some questions, and I thought they were valid. I want to bring them to the board's attention before we really dive in. So whatever you'd like to do, Madam Chair, if you want to open it to the public, if you want to open it to Ms. Gogolinski to join us and kind of go over some of these items, or I can just read them off and we can go from there.
Read off which items?
Sure.
So
on I gave you the entire warrant in your
Yeah,
packet. So
right.
this is page 9. Solar energy system active is a definition. It's about 6 or 7 down, section 6.8.1. This last sentence reads that solar energy system shall not be included in calculations for lot coverage or impervious cover so long as said installation should have grass or planted surfaces beneath them. That's per DEP standards.
Which one are you on?
Sorry, it's 6.8.1, page 9 of 19.
Yeah.
One of the definitions reads solar energy system active, and it's the second sentence in that initial paragraph, where it says solar energy system shall not be included in calculations for lot coverage so long as they have grass or planted surfaces beneath them. That's a DEP standard. They're not technically considered impervious because they have grass under them. As much as we know that rain reflects off them and falls off the sides, that is the standard and how they're defined. The question is how it conflicts with, on page 10 of 19, section 6.8.2.1, the definition reads for residentially scaled solar energy systems. The last sentence, such as building setback requirements and requisite lot coverage requirements. I just want to explain the difference here. Where we're talking about the DEP standard definition on page 9, page 10 is referring to what's required for lot coverage requirements in any particular zone. The confusion, it seems like we're kind of offsetting ourselves with the definition and what's listed here. However, this would cover any sort of solar system, some that could be considered on a carport, or some that are considered to be over impervious surface already. I think that's where it says requisite lot coverage requirements, where it's when applicable to our regulation. So
do we have a definition of lot coverage already
the only
in our zoning
one,
bylaw?
Madam Chair, that really stands out to me is when something's located in the aquifer district, and
Okay.
and where it comes to rendering impervious a certain percentage of the lot.
Yeah, I don't love the word requisite.
Yeah, this is straight from our DEP, the state template, so that it's talking about applicable lot coverage requirements. It just took requisite instead of applicable. So,
But if you don't have a definition on what lot coverage means, it's vague.
but it's elsewhere in the regulation. I just think that this covers
Well,
both.
why do
but if it's not-
we even need that sentence?
Well, I think it covers different types of solar development. I think we're thinking about just clearing land, putting solar arrays on open earth. I think this would cover it in case there were other types of development proposed.
Well, you're giving examples, but if you do period, other provisions of the zoning bylaws, period, end it there, obviously they have to go by the zoning bylaws. And that allows for some interpretation.
I'm okay with that.
Right, because it should be
We're just
applicable.
Yeah.
it's automatic, it's a
Right.
moot point
Yeah.
Right,
to give that example.
because it should be all subject to building setbacks.
So remove such as the last line is what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just end it at zoning bylaws.
Right, period.
And omit such as building setback requirements.
Because there's way more than that, you know, we don't need to put too much.
I'm absolutely okay with that.
And then that clears up and I do agree with the pervious determination from DEP.
Okay.
To the chair, how does this impact the bylaw that we passed about 2 years ago, where we defined what a large-scale and small-scale solar?
It's overlapping it. It's,
Yeah, there's no impact in this particular
Yeah.
piece. They're still separated out in the regulation.
Right.
This just further helps bolster that
And then
for us.
on page 9 of 19, we'll leave that one alone.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
And then
Okay.
if we can shift, I know this is probably the tabbing and stuff, the formatting. I know that the town clerk is able to adjust.
Yeah.
So I'm noting a couple that can be remedied after the vote. That would be good. Oh,
Okay.
this is just a draft, so it wasn't
Right.
printed. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're
So
saying.
we've got a tab
Tracy.
on the,
Like under 6.8 residentially scaled and commercially, that should be tabbed over under the 6.8. Like it is on page 11, where that's whole paragraph
Yeah.
is over to the left.
The town clerk thankfully has some liberties with the tabbing
Yes.
and formatting after town meeting votes.
yeah, we voted for that a while.
Yeah, so on page 9, you do cover the residential and commercial.
Yes,
Yeah.
they are differentiated, yep,
All right, so, and that aligns with what we already passed.
correct. So, on to the next piece that was identified at FinCom. There are two. Page 13 of 19, section 6.8.9.1, setbacks,
Yep,
okay?
yep.
So we didn't have any setbacks for commercial arrays already in the regulation, so we have to establish some. These are the numbers that the building commissioner and I kind of came up with together. The question that came up was the minimum lot frontage. And we chose 200 feet just because that's consistent with residential development in the area. But the questions have been raised about solar array not needing that because you're just talking about an access drive to get into deeper back land in some cases. So I guess I'm opening it up for discussion, consideration for a change in the lot frontage.
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
Because a lot of them require just a road access.
Like 40 feet, 30 feet.
Because it's buried in back.
You can say,
I see 40.
My recommendation would be 60.
I'd go more than 40.
Because it's
You gotta have more.
our right-of-way requirement in our subdivision regulations. I'm thinking long-term, solar arrays get decommissioned, you're gonna have a lot with 60 feet of frontage, possible subdivision development, it would meet the standard of our
Right, 60.
regulation.
okay, if I could get a comment from Mrs. Gogolinski
Absolutely.
for your recommendation from Finance Committee on that.
Yeah, we talked about, not only the finance committee, but we discussed it last night at economic development as well. And, I want to really, I think it's great that Matt has come up with this bylaw, because I think it's a really good thing. You're going to take care of stormwater, and especially that decommissioning bond. I think it's a fantastic idea. We've got some good things in this bylaw, and he's done a good job. But why do you need frontage for a solar thing? Think about it. I mean, it's up. More than likely, you don't want them close to the street. You don't want to have to look at them. You want them in the back where nobody's going to see them. And all you need is a deeded access to it. Hardly anyone ever goes there. Cell towers, there's some cell towers in town. They didn't ask for any frontage. Cell towers there, you gotta get to the cell tower now and then. That's it. I mean, these things, nobody has to even hardly ever go there. And I mean, I think they're a great thing for the town, because if you think about it, we're gonna get tax revenue off of them. Not only are we gonna get tax revenue, as soon as those things go on a lot, that lot is gonna be worth a lot more money. So we're gonna get tax revenue from the solar things. We're also gonna get more money off of probably land that is backland. We're gonna get more taxes over that. So from a revenue point, I think it's a really good revenue thing to come in. And so that's part of it, but I don't see any reason why you have to have frontage. The
Are you
best thing
saying-
you want is to get them up in the back where you can't see them.
Are you saying not required for the frontage
I'm saying
requirement?
frontage is not required, but what you need to require is deeded access to it, okay? And deeded access, wide enough to get back and forth. I live on the reservoir, okay? I get back and forth to my house, actually over right away. Not only I, but 7 other houses down there the same way. I do have frontage because my lot was developed a long time ago, but that's not what I use to get in. There's 7 or 8 houses down there that have no frontage whatsoever. We have, I don't know, maybe our gravel road is 15 feet wide. We never have a problem going back and forth, and we're using it all the time.
But if I, through the chair,
Yeah.
let me say, I don't have a problem with that personally.
Right.
But I think it should be subject to the local, the actual underlying zoning for setbacks. So if it's a 25-foot side yard, it needs to apply. If it's a 50-foot frontage, front setback, it should apply. All the setbacks can apply.
Well, I agree. Setbacks.
That because you may have a neighbor next to one of these to protect the right of the neighbor.
Yeah, I
And
thought
I'm
maybe
okay with what you're
100 feet
saying.
is a bit much.
Yeah.
100 feet is a bit much.
Through the chair, if I may, and I agree with you at the time, the thing is 20 years from now,
Right.
when that's decommissioned,
Right.
and you only have 20 feet of opening, you can't do nothing with the land. So if you set it up now, so 20 years from now, when they say solar or something new has come out,
No,
and now it's
utilize landlocked land.
Right.
now they can't do it through the chair.
But it
So,
doesn't,
if you have-
right at this moment, if you have zero frontage, it's not usable. So if we allow it as you somehow form a
Yeah.
right-of-way through a property to get,
So have like 100 feet of frontage is what I'm getting at, and I'd say at least. Then that way there, not only that, like the developments we have in the works right now, all right? So let's say that gets developed 20, 25 years from now. The road going in is gonna be used for the bus stop and everything else, mailboxes and the whole 9 yards, where you're gonna want an area.
right, but it could be used, if you have sufficient frontage, it could be used anyway. But if you have not sufficient frontage, then it's not gonna be used no matter what.
Right.
So you could look at it both ways. You could do 60 feet or through deeded access, something like 60-foot
Yeah.
right-of-way access to
Right
a
of way.
public way.
That, through the chair, yeah, I think we agree upon 200 might not be,
No.
okay, so we agree on 200, that's, I mean,
Is all.
I think to what Tracy highlighted is, if we've got a landlocked parcel, and you got two neighbors, let's say the neighbor's got frontage enough to provide a right-of-way to a landlocked parcel, and they put a solar farm on, that's 60-foot right-of-way, then if the solar farm gets decommissioned
Right.
30 years from now,
You can
they
develop.
still have a right-of-way into
It
that
should-
parcel.
Through the chair, it should be at least the minimum of what we require
Right.
for a subdivision road.
Yep.
That way you have access to redevelop the land when a solar
Right.
farm gets decommissioned. That's-
But
I may-
if they have 200-foot frontage, you have two lots that are zoning compliant.
Right.
And you have a right-of-way, you're not going to be able to build a subdivision back there. It
Right.
would only be able to be used for this utility.
Right, but what I'm saying is 20, 25 years from now, when we're all gone and somebody wants to do something with it,
Speak for yourself.
well, or whatever, I mean, who knows? But like we ran into an issue before, you need to have a 30-foot buffer zone on each side. So you have two houses, you have a 60-foot right-of-way, you no longer have your buffer zone. So your buffer zone's gone, now you can't put a road through it. So if you have 100 feet,
Yeah.
and you have 30 feet of buffer on one side, 30 feet of buffer on the other, now you have access to up through the center.
But I think it develops, it's an opportunity to develop backland that it's not already residentially used.
That's the thing.
Right, but if the solar is decommissioned, it could be turned into residential usage. Because that could be an access road, because there could be a way out on the other side.
The zoning doesn't allow it to be used at this time. So we're
At this
trying to
time,
go
yeah.
for the default, which could possibly, we could open this up to, yeah, Mrs. Lugonski?
Right?
Yes, yes.
I mean, I can even see a scenario where someone has a home, and they have 200 feet of frontage, which is what they require right now, but they have 37 acres sitting behind them,
Yeah.
okay? They're gonna just have a deeded right away on the side of their property or somewhere, because most people, have quite a bit of space with 200 feet of frontage. The deeded right away, and the solar thing's gonna be up in the back.
So,
It's their property, why do you need
You
it?
need to have
Because now you-
60 feet of frontage, you're taking it off their lot. and-
To allow for the solar to go there.
so
Common ownership law.
yeah, and just through the chair, I think the compromise would be 60 feet, okay? Or with the approval of the planning board to allow a right-of-way of 60-foot width. That would address what Carol's brought up, where if the parcel's already got 200 feet of frontage, you can't cut 60 off of it, because then you create a non-conforming lot. But if you gave them a right-of-way along the property, because they've got 200 feet and the house is shifted, they can get to the back land. And so what we could do, say, in the bylaw, is turn around and say, with the planning board's approval of a 60-foot right-of-way, again, the authority still sits with the board, to allowing a right-of-way to get into a landlocked parcel, that right-of-way then becomes transferable, because then it goes to that back parcel.
If I can through the chair, remember now, you're making a right of way to go to a commercial facility, commercial. Because bylaw, that would be a commercial-sized solar farm. So now you're giving an easement in a residential neighborhood for a commercial facility.
Okay, which, underneath?
Through the chair, that's yes, that is commercial.
Dover.
Okay, all right, so, okay,
You're
so
allowed-
if we could get back to the point, so, what I'm hearing is we need a reduction from that 200 feet. And I believe we should have a reduction from the 100 foot also.
The setback of-
It was suggested the underlying zoning, which would be residential is what we're really concerned about, which would be 25. So they end up clearing, yes, you want to say one thing?
No, I'll wait for you to finish your thought.
So we end up clearing, so the farm is not going to be maintaining that 25 foot if you're clearing for the sun. So maybe, I mean, lot frontage, we could do 60. I'm unsure about the right of way, and then setbacks 50. Maybe 100 for the front, and then 50 for the side and the rear. Then that would give them enough cleared trees to get to, say, the 25.
Sure, and I appreciate that, Madam Chair. The only reason that I can't recommend reverting to the underlying zoning is because then I have to add something to the use table, and that's not proposed for town meeting at this time. All we
No.
can do is add a table for solar use under the bylaw that we're modifying. And
Yeah.
that's just because of the timing of everything with town meeting coming up.
I think that's comfy at, maintaining, say, a 25-foot buffer of vegetation and trees, the existing tree line, maintaining that.
Just so the chair, I would agree with for a residential solar farm, solar array, but I probably would want 50-foot buffer because of accessing it around what we've dealt with other solar farms where they have to come in to maintain, So it's not really on the property line, you got 50-foot more room, you know what I mean?
But you still need the vegetative buffer in all cases.
And what are we doing with residential?
Well, that's
We're in
the
the
thing.
commercial.
This
Commercial-
talks about commercial.
Solar in commercially and industrially zoned properties. We're not blanketing that zone, that setbacks, right?
The
Okay.
residentially scaled solar arrays are allowed by right in all zones. It's the commercially scaled arrays that we're talking about.
Right, so these setbacks proposed in all zones?
Yes.
And shall meet the minimum requirements within all other applicable zoning districts. Okay, all right, so we're just talking, this table is just for residential,
It's just for
RA.
solar development.
Residential.
for RA, so, yeah, commercial, solar in RA.
It's not just RA, it's townwide.
I thought, and shall meet the minimum requirements within all other applicable.
I just chose the general standard for frontage in RA because that's a majority of our town.
Oh, yeah.
That's the only reason I took 200 feet. But this is
Okay.
all zoning districts, these would be the standards for all solar
So
development.
that's probably not, that's not gonna work either.
Well, that's it, we have to choose something, we have to make a table for it because I can't amend a different section of the regulations for this town
Alright.
meeting.
So,
So RA and all other zones.
No, it's just,
So-
so for all residential districts shall meet the minimum requirements within all other applicable zones, so.
So can we do RA as the first line and
Oh,
then other zones?
I beg your pardon, I'm reading that right. You are absolutely correct. This is what's for residential only.
Okay.
I am
all
sorry.
right, all right, that's okay. Okay, all right. Okay, so 60, and then 100 for front, 50 for side and rear. The only thing I would want to think about is that right of way,
So what do you want to change it, John?
minimum lot frontage. Because if you have a lot, say 60 foot and 30 acres, it's, you can do one house there at this time, permittable.
2.5 foot side setback.
50,
100?
50.
versus the 25.
Yeah, the 50 side is I agree.
I mean, the other solar farm was how close
Yeah.
to the side setback?
Some of them have a 100-foot
The one on West
rear
Street.
setback, though. Wallam does.
Yeah, but the one on West Street.
Rear setback?
Yeah,
That was a suggestion under site plan approval?
I think that's what it is on theirs, at AMP, I think it's 100 feet.
Yeah, I think that
Not
was
setback, but buffer.
Yeah, that was, I think because that was a wetland, because of the wetlands.
Probably.
Okay. Board, any other comments about the right-of-ways? Do you want to think about it anymore?
I
think it's messy.
For the road.
What do we,
60?
what do we settle with 60?
60.
And that's in residential zone district. Okay, so that, if you decommission, then you have an actual road.
Right-of-way.
With that
Width.
is,
Yeah.
that can be applied to a subdivision for future development.
Yeah, if it's newly graded, right? And then for the right-of-way, can we work on the language of, again, with the planning board's approval of a right-of-way, again, if you had to, what Mrs. Guglielski highlighted, if you have 200 foot of frontage and you already have a house there, but you've got 40 acres of backland, the right-of-way would be 60, again, with the planning board's approval to get back there, to put in an array, that again, the town would.
I mean, it's your land and you can do what you want with it, but you're giving up a house lot if you put a road in,
You don't have the house lot, the house is already there.
200 feet of frontage,
or you only have 200.
60-foot
And so you
right-of-way.
can't cut off the 60-foot lane to get back out there,
Subdivide.
to subdivide it, because then you're creating a non-conforming lot.
Yeah.
So the only way to do it is
Give the right of way to a leasee.
a leasee, and that way there, the planning board's, has looked at it, voted on it, said it's in the best interest of them.
It would be an asterisk, and then,
This only applies to three-phase industry. There's three-phase, because most of the town and the side roads are single-phase anyways. You're not going to be able to go over 10 kilowatts.
is this getting too
That'll change.
complicated?
No, it's not so much that, it's just, that would open up floodgates, in my opinion. I think that right-of-way thing is something we may want to explore in the future, but I'd like to get the bylaw implemented, and then that's a really technical legal matter. And there's circumstances where a dominant or servient tenement could abandon an easement, and then whoever's on the solar array gets decommissioned, they lose their easement, and they can't do further development. So
Right, yeah, I
there's a
would-
lot there.
Yeah, I
Not
would-
only that, how can you-
I would
I think we should try for the fall for it. We gotta add
Do some
it.
research.
And let me ask you the chair, so how can you take a 200-foot front house, 200 feet of frontage of a house on it? How are you gonna cut 60 feet out of that property, then still keep your 200 feet of frontage?
You wouldn't be able to.
It's not, we're saying right-of-way.
It's right away.
An easement,
and it still
let's just
maintains
say.
the frontage.
There's no subdividing of the property. So I think we should move forward. I think we should just do the 60-foot at this time, and then maybe revisit the table
I think we gotta revisit
for
Yeah,
RA.
as long as we keep the 50-foot side buffer.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you have that, then pretty much you have to tear the house down, because you're gonna be going right through the center of the house.
No, not with the roadway, just with the solar array. Not with roadway.
So what are you
With a
gonna have for
solar
a
array.
side for the roadway?
Nothing. Nothing.
All right, so yet you have other developments that you require 30
It's a
feet.
driveway.
Huh?
It's a driveway. That's, you're talking about residential compound.
There's traffic that there's not no.
Not in a solar. You got a landscaper like a couple times a week.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Once
May I
they're
ask a
built.
question, because I know what decommissioning means. Okay, what is the criteria that somebody has to have a decommissioning plan? I mean, certainly when people have things on their roofs under the 10 kilowatt and single phase, there's no decommissioning. Nobody
Right.
knows anything, it can just rot on the roof for 5,000 years.
Right.
When does decommissioning kick in? How does somebody, what's the mechanism for that?
Sure, they would have to post a bond in the valuation of all their property, what it would take to remove that. And they would post a bond with us.
But
They
this
generally
only
have a,
30 kilowatts only? Is it
yes,
decommissioning?
yes.
Only in the 30, over 30. Well, that's a point of clarity.
Yes.
So thank you.
Yep.
All
Because
right,
they're coming to us for that.
so I'd like, let's move on to the next.
So the other one
Good.
is on page 15 of 19. This is 6.8.11.2, land clearing, soil erosion and impacts. First sentence, large-scale clearing of forested areas in excess of 5 acres for the purpose of constructing systems prohibited. So this is a protective measure. It was in there for a reason. This was recommended to me by those, or several parties who are concerned about the volume of clearing for arrays of our existing forest just for solar. The general uneasy feeling that folks get is that solar is supposed to be something that's environmentally friendly, and then folks come down and level forests in order to get it. So some communities, and my conversations with a lot of different towns as part of the planning association, have implemented limits of clearing. I haven't seen any taller than 5 acres, or excuse me, under 5 acres, but this is really open for discussion. I'm curious what you guys think. The idea here is to steer developers to land that's already clear. Talking capped landfills, farms that are no longer being used as farms. You're trying to steer them to those first before you start clearing the trees. That's why this is here, but it's absolutely open for discussion.
So, through the chair, all you have to do is get a forestry permit. You can go in and cut it.
Of course.
Yep.
I mean,
The
I can go-
operative word is for the purpose.
It's still.
So how are they gonna
there again,
prove- how are we gonna
We're going
prove
back to a
that?
new subject, just like we did a couple of minutes ago. You're allowing an opening in our area to go up through, like was brought up. It's your land, why can't you do what you want? All you gotta do is get a forestry permit, and then you
I
can
know.
cut the trees down.
Yeah.
So it's, I understand where you're coming from, but it's the chicken and the egg situation here. I mean,
Well, how would we, so the person comes in and applies for the solar farm in a forested area. How are we going to police them? They could say, I needed the money from the trees.
so, and it's done,
So, and they are before us, so what are we gonna say? No, you cleared it because you're gonna, we know that you are gonna do a solar farm.
doesn't matter.
I understand.
Where's the teeth?
Yeah.
I understand. It's difficult to enforce. I fully understand that.
The other aspect is if you look, part of this is what the commercial solar developers gonna get for their rebates from the state and federal. They have to have so many kilowatts to meet. And if I can't think of any array that is commercial, that is under 10 acres. Or
They
5
aren't.
acres.
Right.
They're all bigger than that.
Right.
So they need to clear that because what they're gonna put in. And I think at the one up in Auburn, you can see it was in a big field area, now what they developed and they put it in. But we haven't approved anything on a commercial level that's under 10 acres. A lot of it's been backland or someone who wishes to keep their farm. If we said, oh, you can't put it in because, you could developing on Oak Street, let's say, for example, it's 13 acres and you can't clear that area and set that land up to put a solar in, then that farmer might have to sell the land versus leasing it.
Or
Sure.
build houses.
Yeah.
I'd rather have the solar.
Yeah.
Sure. No, I understand. And this was strictly to try to guide developers towards those already cleared areas. And I get the forestry permit, believe me. It's just, there's a lot of feedback from town about leveling forests for solar. So that's why this is open for discussion.
So just through the chair, all the brownfields have been already looked at for solar because those are the higher
They're
priorities.
incentivized. Yeah.
Right, but they've already been looked at, everybody went through and looked and assessed and see if you could put solar on the old dumps and stuff like that. Because that's the first thing they looked at because the incentives were higher there.
Yeah.
So saying, looking at dumps or land that's already been kind of cleared, that ship's already kind of set sail. And so I don't think this is really going to help. I mean, and we've got a town that's 37, 35% state forest. So we already have a lot of untouched areas.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, if, like Tracy, the scenario you said, that somebody goes in and clear cuts their land because they said they need the money, and they want to put a solar in there, and the land's already all cleared, and you don't have your buffer zone, so you have to implement a tree planting policy or a buffer zone policy. They still can't build beyond that buffer. They still have to keep that array within the buffer, and if they remove all the trees,
Yeah.
then they're gonna have to plant trees.
But this is saying for the purpose of constructing systems is prohibited.
Yeah.
So how do we enforce that sentence?
I kind of have a thought on it. Like, I hate seeing areas get completely deforested and solar comes in. It's just a huge eyesore. I can see them, I would have a tough time if someone came in, hey, I have 30 acres of forested land, I want to clear cut it, put solar in. I'd have a tough time with that. But if ahead of time they want to go and get a forestry permit and set it up ahead of time, that's on them. But I just hate clear cutting all those trees just for that sole purpose. So I like to have a hold on that and have some way to control that.
It's people's rights
Yeah,
to,
through the chair, you're right. I mean,
You are right.
you're
and it's our right
paying
to
for it.
deny the project.
It's yours.
We
But
did-
you're, you can't deny it for that sentence.
You can't just stop it.
Mrs. Gogolinski, did you have something?
Well, as
The
far as, forestry, I've had forestry work done on my property, and a forester comes in and he marks all the trees. They do not clear cut. They don't clear cut.
That's right.
So, they don't clear cut it. So that's what you're saying is it gonna happen. And then as far as like the 5 acres, a lot of these, if you're gonna get a decent sized solar thing in, they're gonna have to bring in some heavy duty wires to bring this in. They're probably gonna have to bring it up 3-phase power and stuff like that. They're not gonna do it for 5 acres. And so right away, the minute you've got this in there, you might as well say, we're not gonna have
Right.
any commercial.
We're not welcoming to the
Right.
solar.
So I
Yeah.
think that sentence should be just deleted altogether. And then work with it when it comes.
Yeah, we can put conditions on.
Oh, I agree, you need conditions, but you can put conditions yourselves when they come here. But right away you say, you're not gonna do anything more than 5 acres, okay? Somebody's gonna put a solar 5 acres, okay, forget it. Not even gonna look, not even
Yeah.
gonna come, not gonna ask, nothing.
Yep.
You could say discouraged. You can say,
That doesn't have any,
well, I don't think that prohibited has anything.
If I can, through the chair, I mean, here you are saying you're gonna prohibit it for solar, but yet if some big development comes in or some big warehouse, you say, go right ahead. So.
not in residential.
Huh?
Not in residential.
Right.
You could do it, no, Mike's right. If it was a development going to residential.
It goes either way. I mean, it's a two-edged sword here. It's one of
All right.
those deals where we gotta allow
So
both sides.
consensus is we're striking the first sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah, agree.
Okay. All right. So those were the items that we brought up. Okay. Be interested if anyone else in the public has any comments or the board has any other comments about the regulation itself.
Okay. I'll open it up. Anyone in the audience have any questions or concerns regarding the adoption of the new section 6.8 residentially scaled and commercially scaled solar energy systems? Name and address. Yeah, you can put your hand up. Anyone in here? Seeing none. Mr. Benoit, are you all set?
Yeah, it's just, all says,
Entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Mr. Zwicker made the motion, second by Mr. Sokrat. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Madam Chair, would be looking for a motion to move to approve and recommend favorable action to town meeting, section 6.8, as amended.
Okay. Mr. Sokrat made the motion.
Second.
Mr. Schultzberg seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Next, the removal of the temporary moratorium.
Yes, Madam Chair, pretty straightforward on this one. This is simply removing the section 8.4 as the moratorium expired over 4 years ago.
Okay, anyone in the audience have any questions or concerns regarding this?
Oh, I apologize. We need a motion to open that one. Sorry.
Then we open them all?
Yeah.
She wrote up
Do you
all
wanna call
the
a
different
blanket?
times.
Yeah.
So they're all done at once.
I'll take it. Okay.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Mr. Zwicker made the motion, seconded by Mr. Stevens. All those in favor?
Aye.
Madam Chair, looking for a motion to approve and recommend favorable action to town meeting for the removal of section 8.4.
Motion made by Mr. Schultzberg,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Stevens. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Amendments to section 9.4, site plan review, subsections 9.4.2 and 9.4.4.
Sure. Madam Chair, as if you recall, this was to add the public hearing requirement to section to our site plan regulations.
Okay,
It's not highlighted well on page 8, but it is, the second sentence, it reads, "Site plan review requires notice of public hearing procedure in accordance with MGL Chapter 48, Section 11." And the only other two things that changed were further in the document, you could see two striked words, the number 5 replaced with 10. Those are the only changes proposed on this one.
okay.
If I may. In the requirements, they have 7 lines, signature lines. Because we've been getting up and down.
I can add,
That's been brought up before, but it was never in print. And now we're getting them with only 5 lines. You know, there's no
I
consistency.
think Mr. Benoit had
we can
given
add,
some permission on that.
yeah, we can add that as a policy and procedure as a board. Doesn't have to go to town meeting.
Yeah, because we don't have, the contents of the plan do not have the requirement for signatures, so
Okay.
we can vote that in on the policy.
All right.
Anyone in the audience have any questions or concerns regarding this agenda item? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Mr. Zwicker made a motion, seconded by Mr. Sokrat. All those in favor?
Aye.
Madam Chair, looking for a motion to approve and recommend favorable action to town meeting for the amendments to section 9.4, subsections 9.4.2 and 9.4.4.
So
Mr. Schultzberg made the motion,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Zwicker. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, the amendments to section 10.0, definitions, new definitions for building elevation and building height.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is going to look a lot different than the last time you saw it.
I love the chart. That was good that you added that diagram.
All right, so this was per the recommendation of the building commissioner. He's unfortunately unable to join us here this evening, but the short explanation for this is to remove any questions about the definitions of elevation and height between folks applying for permits, developers and whatnot. This gives it one interpretation for all to follow.
Question just through the chair. What he's, in the diagram that's being shown here is arrows not from the peak of the building itself,
Correct.
but it's showing from the second floor or first floor, depending on whether you have a basement or the grading of the lot.
Yes.
So we're not triggering what the, we're talking about the definitions in here for height, but we don't talk about the overall height of the building due to the peak.
But that's already in the section of the grid, you know, the actual.
Yeah, but measured from where?
Right.
Yeah.
There are two definitions here.
Have a height, you know.
Yeah, there's two here. There's elevation, images A and B, and building height is the line underneath. Talks about from those highest points of structure. I'm not going to pretend I'm a building commissioner. You guys probably know more about this stuff than I, but the building commissioner pulled a lot of this right from regulations otherwise. So he's very comfortable. He is our,
Why is this diagram the same? Exact picture.
there are some wording that's different in there.
Well,
So measuring from
wouldn't
when a hill's built in.
be the bottom of B too?
I don't know.
I guess what I'm saying is, our professional that we would defer to for comment on this is the building commissioner, and this is his interpretation and recommendation. We're just looking to support his interpretation and
I mean, I
recommendation.
work on it, so I mean, Seen a lot of these.
And I totally agree through the chair and understand, but we're all looking at it, and none of us here know what we're really looking at.
Yeah, the elevation pictures are the same exact thing, trying to say, I believe you've got like a raised ranch on the first picture.
Something built into a hill.
But the diagram is showing the same exact, and the wording is in the same position.
For a second,
When you're talking
two-story.
a walkout,
Yes.
basement,
Yeah.
There you go.
first one A, and that in the front, which is the shorter of the arrows, is no more than 6 feet, I suppose he's saying, in the front, and no more than 12 feet above the back. Is that what that is?
So it would,
I'm not,
it would
I'm not
be
him.
like, let's say my house looks like 2-story from the front, 3-story from the back.
Back, right.
So determining the elevations.
Yes.
But the diagram
I just don't think the diagram's right.
not correct.
No.
So
I don't.
what I
agree with that, Greg.
what I would suggest is striking the diagrams or modifying the, or we cross out first story above grade plane.
If you wouldn't mind allowing me to reach out to the building commissioner and having him join us and perhaps table this for later?
I probably can get a picture that
That's the
makes
basement,
sense.
this is the ground.
Yeah,
This is the ground, it says
so-
first story above grade, but it's below grade.
in the ground, yeah. So this picture B needs to be elevated to the ground elevation and basement shown as the same exact.
Right, because you're not showing a basement on the second one.
The second one, the second one,
It
the word
says
should be
first story
above.
above grade.
Yeah.
Bottom of first story, it doesn't say basement like A does. So you need basement and first story.
Yeah, that's what, I think, it's what he's intending to have, but it's just not
Not,
there.
I don't know how to say it, folks. It makes perfect sense to him, and I'm going to defer to him. So I'm going to try to get him to join us, okay?
You got 6 of us over here puzzled by it.
I'd rather just let him talk about it. So if he can join us, great. If not,
Yeah.
unfortunate.
want to
Then it doesn't make town meeting floor because we
Move
don't
on,
have
and then we'll
the
come back
ability
to
to
this?
continue.
Well, we either, the wording is okay without the diagram.
The board could make one of two
Yeah.
motions. You could defer to him entirely at town meeting floor.
we still have a
Well,
little bit of
he's
time.
probably, if we have this diagram, he's going to have to present it.
He will.
Because, it doesn't,
We do have one more meeting before town meeting, right, the 28th? And the article may get, if we need to do.
It's 4 days.
Yeah,
I have to provide a report before then.
Let's
so.
move on with the
Yeah.
evening and then wait, see if Ken can
Join us.
yeah, I'm just trying to get
come
a
online.
diagram right now.
'Cause I thought, what he was originally going to propose was points around them.
Yeah,
Yeah, a lot
the
of
grade
towns, they
points.
Every 12 feet.
Mean.
That you take the average and,
That's what I thought initially.
you know,
So,
I would simplify more than that, but, you know,
let's move
'cause
on.
I've done Brookline and Natick and, you know, Newton and all of them. but I'm not
All right,
out.
let's move forward.
It's my own fault, because I didn't put it in.
All right, so we'll table this
Okay.
agenda item. And I think the words just need to be relocated on the diagram. So if he wants to kind of walk through that before he comes on.
Okay.
Okay, so we're tabling the amendment of the definitions
Correct.
to 7 to 8:05. We need a motion for that to
No.
extend time?
No, it remains
Okay,
open.
all right. Okay, next item, 7:20 PM, public hearing continued from March 24th, 2022, CRG Services Management LLC. They're requesting it to continue until April 28th, 2022 at 7 PM.
So, we have to open up the public hearing
It's open.
It's open.
for that? Okay. So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Zwicker.
Second.
Second by Mr. Greco. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next item is the 7th.
Madam
Yep,
Chair, may I
yes.
please request that we move up one item as there is, I think we might be waiting a little while. We have an item for Whiten Heights.
Sure.
For a bond reduction.
Okay,
He's been on since the beginning, and I feel if we get to the next subdivision, he could be waiting another hour.
okay, sure.
We have a request for Whiten Heights. This is ongoing development number 5D. Do I have your permission to move that up?
Yes.
Thank you. We had this reviewed by our consultant and at Leonard Engineering. They have authorized reduction, or at least they're comfortable with a reduction from the existing bond, which is currently in our account at $159,136 to $89,211.07. Just looking for a motion to authorize a reduction. This has been vetted by our consultant and
Project is this?
Whiten Heights
Through the
Development.
chair. As you know, what went on, I mean, they're not maintaining that place without it being policed. So I don't.
That's all of them.
I was up there and I had pictures, and they did get cleaned out. They're allowing the catch basins to be filled right to the top and letting the water run over, and wash out all the soil in behind and over the curb. The only reason that it got cleaned out is I just happened to drive by there one day on the way home from work. We're acting like babysitters for this project. So I don't think right now is a good time for any bond reduction until they get some more grass seeded and some more cleanup and being able to take care of their own project. That's my own personal opinion.
Okay, thank
The
you.
chair, did they provide a punch list of which part of the bond they want reduced?
Yes.
Like,
Yep, that's in our packet.
What are they asking for the reduction?
Okay. There's a laundry list of items.
Yeah, there's a, it's in your packet right
Okay, do we
here.
have it in here?
Yes.
From today.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, gravel, borrow driveways, bit conch, base sideways, driveways, granite curb inlets, bit conch sideways, loam, seating.
Through the chair, I mean, if anybody takes a drive up there, it's just, there's just dirt everywhere, there's mud everywhere, there's gravel everywhere. I mean, there's just,
What is the total requested
Well, it's-
bond? 69,271?
Yeah, it's a reduction from approximately $160,000 to approximately $90,000. The $90,000 being more than sufficient.
so that's like 35, 38% off.
Right. It's still, our consultant agrees that it's more than enough funds to cover the remaining work with a contingency.
Just through the chair, I think it's always worthwhile for us to do a site drive-by or whatever before we do the reduction. We see any concerns around that. To your point,
The consultant was paid to do that.
Yes.
I think that the work is completed. There's some lumen seeding of, it's about 10,400. I don't know about that part.
There is. Mr. Govan is here.
Mr. Who, I'm sorry?
Jude Govan.
Oh. Hi,
Hello,
name and address, please.
Jude Gobbin, 15 Beach Street, Millbury. I understand the comments about the erosion. The items that we're asking for to be, the bond to be released back to my client is the items that have already been completed. For example, the sidewalk has been installed, so we're asking for that money to be released back from the account so that, we can continue with the project. The sediment does wash off. The slope of the road is pretty steep, so when it rains, they're having a nightmare at the time keeping everything off of the street. They do fill up the catch basins, and it does go back over into the detention basin. They're constantly struggling with that until the stabilization occurs on the site. Some of the items that are remaining are to, for example, clean out the detention basin, clean out the catch basins before, the project is finished. So those items and that money is still in the account and will remain in the account. The items that we're asking for to be reduced are things that have actually been installed and money's been paid out, so the town doesn't have the risk of, accepting a subdivision road if it doesn't have a sidewalk, for example. The sidewalk's been installed, that's what the money was there for, that's, we can check that off the list. Doug and I from Leonard Engineering walked the site the other day. They spent a lot of time, per my request again, to clean up the street. They swept the street, they cleaned out all the silt sacks. They're making an effort to do it. It is an ongoing issue, but the items that we're asking for are items that have been completed. So,
Yeah, could you speak to the location of the loam and the seating? I'm okay with all the rest of the hardscape items.
yeah, so my thought process on that was they're working on, there's 2 lots that are left. One's being framed and one's got a foundation, lots 1 and 11. So I applied a ratio of the 2 houses that are under construction that are going to need the loom and seed versus the ones that have been complete with the loom. Every time they wash out, they got to scoop the stuff up and put it back onto the lots. So, there are some stabilization issues on the other lots, but the loom is already in place on those lots. So, like I said, the thought process was to reduce the bond because the loom's already on those lots and some of them have been seeded, to reduce it to a ratio. So there is some money left in the loan and seed budget.
Okay. I mean, I think there's, well, board, why don't we go around and.
Through the chair, I mean, I'll give a little bit back. Through the
Oh,
chair.
sorry, what?
I was just, if you're talking,
Oh,
let her finish, that's
Yeah.
all.
But the full amount that they're asking, I don't think so. Especially with the way the cost of inflation right now, the cost of fuel right now, and everything else. If we have to do anything up there, it's gonna cost everybody a lot more money.
So
Through
continue.
the chair?
Yes.
I can address that, actually. I specifically had a conversation with Doug, and if you look at his review letter, he updated the bond amount. We originally asked for 74,000 back, and he updated the bond amount, and he updated all the current prices, because we had 2017 pricing, so all the unit costs he adjusted, and that's where we came up with the 69,000 versus the 74, because he went through almost item by item and adjusted the unit cost for today's rate.
right.
So that was accounted for and thought of.
So what my concern is the stabilization of the existing lots over and over, like you said, as it gets washed out. And will that continue after the town accepts this? Or before acceptance, I guess? And can we, where is the location of the square yards? Is it in the high traffic area? Can we maybe hold on that a little bit to see if it's stabilized there?
Very valid points with the stabilization in the loom, and I would say that we could table or remove the loam and seed from it, and then
Okay.
whatever the bond amount is after those two line items are added back, that would be fine.
Okay.
I do understand the loam, it does wash away, but it does go somewhere, and they scoop it up and put it back.
Yeah, the scooping really triggered me. Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I did the math on that for you.
You were, oh, thank you.
So it leaves it with a balance of $99,678 and 29 cents.
So on our vote for bond reduction, it would be,
It would be for reducing the bond from 159,136 to 99,678.29.
can I hand, and if somebody want to motion that?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Zwicker. Second by Mr. Greco. All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Marks, did you have a question?
No, I was asking how much the loom,
Yeah, we're holding on the
Yeah,
lumen
I just
seed.
wanted the
It was
last- the final number, that's all.
$79.54
Yeah.
and the 20.25.
Back to
Thank
the
you
number.
very much.
Awesome.
I appreciate that.
all right,
Thanks.
thank you.
I'll draft the letter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. All righty. Is Tetra Tech here for Wallen Lake?
No.
Okay.
I'm just putting
That's
mine
gonna
in
be a
there.
little bit long too, right?
Our consultant was supposed to join us and he didn't get back.
Okay, all right. So let's move on to, and then, Mr. Fraser didn't respond yet.
I'll keep trying to reach him.
Okay, all right.
You got a signal?
A signal?
Signal. Sometimes you can't get it in this building.
Oh. There's a
A Ken
Wi-Fi.
signal?
The Batmobile. Okay, 7:30 PM, public hearing continued from March 24th, 2022, Sutton Douglas Development, application for definitive subdivision, Mumford Road and 5 Forest Street. Possible votes.
How are you today?
Yeah, word.
I'll move out of here. You guys are all right.
Sorry. Just some chairs.
Yeah? Which one though?
The one that's the town clerk and Grafton.
My brother and my son for many years.
No, this is Jane.
Oh, Gene, no.
Okay.
through the chair.
Okay, yes?
On our agenda, it says Mumford Road. It should be Duval Road, shouldn't it?
In Douglas, it abuts, it has some minor frontage on Mumford Road. That's why it's been listed that way.
Duval is in Sutton.
Correct.
Sutton,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Yep, the Vol Sutton.
all right. Very good, thank you.
That brings up, actually, was that,
That's right. Yeah,
that was a conservation question?
That was a
The filing-
conservation
The
question.
filing.
Yep,
You cleared that up for me, right?
we did.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. Gotta remember where I am when I'm answering questions, asking questions.
Madam Chair, when I
Yes.
see up there too, I also have to remember which, whether or not I'm before the commission of the board, so I know how you feel.
Okay, so you've received the feedback from Graves, April 8th.
Correct.
Did we make any plan changes yet?
Through the chair, we have not. Wayne Bellick, Land Design Collaborative, for the record. I'm here with Tim Flynn from Flynn Build and Develop. Joining us tonight also is Courtney Sudak. She's the traffic consultant from Tetra Tech. In the event that the board had any questions regarding, additional questions regarding traffic, she
Okay.
would be here to answer those intelligently.
Okay.
Versus myself, so. So, yes, we received the comments. We have yet to make any changes. What we're doing is we're opening up some dialogue at the direction of the two town planners. We're allowed to have some dialogue with the consultants, Tetra Tech with MDM and LDC with Graves Engineering. We did, Madam Chair, after we met with this board, you folks had some things you wanted us to look at, and we did. So what I'd like to do, if it's okay, kind of go over that.
Yes,
Okay,
please.
so, we had met, since we last saw this board, we had met with the Conservation Commission here in town on April 4th. At that time, the hydrogeologics study was presented, as well as the hydrogeologic study was presented. We had gone to the Sutton Planning Board on the 11th of this month, earlier this week, and we presented the same thing, hydrogeology and traffic. So, in terms of the responses to your previous questions, by the way, Tim is firing up.
Apologies, everyone.
That's okay.
To fire it up on the screen here. But there were some questions earlier raised, and they were primarily raised by Mr. and Mrs. Prince up on 1 Forest Street, who are here in the audience. The concern they had was the,
Oh, they are not able to hear you.
okay.
If you could speak a little louder, or, yeah, there you go. Can you hear the mic? If he speaks into the mic?
Thank you.
Sorry.
So
Thanks.
the concerns that were raised by the Princes and echoed by this board was the number of mailboxes, community mailboxes in the development. If you recall, we had one located up at Forest Street at the intersection of Road D, and then another one that was more centrally located. That was dictated by the postmaster here in town. And what we had done is, after hearing the concerns of the board and the Princes, I had gone back the next day, reached out to the postmaster, who was wonderful, in saying, okay, let's go with one centrally located mailbox. And if you look up on the screen, that is the location, the most centrally located area. It takes it away from the Princes, keeps everything located down below. He did remind me that, they do have a mail route that is through the subdivision up above, and they would simply come down into the site, load the mailboxes, and then continue back out. So it seems to work out very well for them.
Okay.
As I said at the previous hearing, what I didn't know before is they get paid per mile or whatever, so that's been addressed.
Okay.
The other thing that was brought up, a legit question, was school buses, drop off and pickup. So we had on the 30th of March, we had gone to meet with Courtney Keenan. She's the school facilities director with the school department. We met with her, we told her that we've been meeting with the board, and the question came up as to where are these kids going to be picked up and dropped off. So when Tim and I had gone to meet with her, our intent was to try to get something within the subdivision. They work on an efficiency type of approach, so what she said is they would not go into the subdivision. What she was looking to do is continue the pickup and drop-off at their current locations. They have 2 locations, as you can see up on the screen. One, both along Birch Street, one at the end of Belvoir, and that is for the elementary and secondary school students. Down below at Fairfax are the elementary school students. So with that, again, we kind of counted and said, well, what about the kids in the development? I mean, is it really that much to come into the development? What we got from them is that those pickup areas are determined by the school department, and it's prior to every year. That's not to say at some point there wouldn't be something within the subdivision, but given what they have currently in their budget to remain, efficient, they're looking to just maintain that location.
Yes. Well, talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Through the chair, just a question. I think the follow-up question for this, I'm not sure if you asked this to the school committee or to Courtney and company, is if they pick up the children there, do they then swing down through Duval Road to go over to grab the kids on Mumford Road as another route?
So, through the chair, it's a great question. We did ask the question.
Yeah.
There were 2 things that came up to Wayne's point. One, to answer your question, is they do not go into another town. They won't do that. That was what was shared with us. So I'm not sure
It was
how
actually
they
very
go
clear.
around.
So I think it's a developing issue if there's children that are living in the development. It's not really.
Yeah.
It's not on the school's
anything
radar
that
right now
we
because they
can-
don't have a student in the
Of course,
development.
so I don't think we can
The school issue.
have any control over that.
So that's dynamic year by year.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because what'll happen if they don't change that, you're gonna have a pile of cars.
No,
sitting
there's
there,
no,
and it's
they're not
Yeah,
gonna.
so it's obvious that
Okay.
the need,
Point.
yeah,
Yeah.
the amount of folks that are going to be living there will dictate, right? That's-
Right.
Yes,
Through the chair, it's good though, at least we have a response and the answer.
correct.
They know it's coming.
At least we all know, and us here on the board know, at this time at least, the way it's laid out. And then there's always a further anticipation, but that's always an unknown.
That's
But
correct.
at least, they're not gonna say, oh yeah, we're definitely gonna be running a route through or whatever.
Right.
So that's what we wanted to do, is get you folks the answers. You asked the questions, so we wanted to get back to you. One of the other questions that had come up here, it had come up for the Conservation Commission, and it had come up in the town of Douglas, was during construction, how long is this going to take? I know that came up with the board here, and we, as we responded, the full build-out, we're expecting, 4 to 5 years perhaps for the full build-out. Question then came up, well, how long are we going to hear construction activity? And as you know, we're looking to do this by phase. Phase 1 obviously being Duval Road, and that first, the portion of the loop, or that loop. And, we know that the traffic, the construction traffic is going to be going primarily out to Duval Road. It's going to be going to Duval Road. It's the path of least resistance when you're looking at the condition of Duval Road versus Birch Street and, the other roads up above. Those roads are not conducive for that type of traffic. So we are looking at primarily Duval Road. That's not to say that a contractor's not going to come through with his pickup truck once Phase 2 goes into effect and go through the subdivision if it's easier to get to the site. So, with that said, we're also concerned, or concerns were raised by the abutters, primarily in Sutton, as to what's going to be happening, knowing that the traffic is going to be going down Duval Road. How long are we going to expect to see different types of vehicles going down Duval Road? As we said before, part of this program is to utilize the materials on site. So things are going to be repurposed. They're going to have a processing operation in each phase where they're going to process the loam, they're going to take any of the rocks they have to create riprap and the like. With the trees, obviously, the lumber will be hauled from the site, but anything that can be chipped will be chipped, covered, and maintained on site for erosion control during the construction process. So generally, the process, so I had reached out to a contractor that I've worked with for a number of years, and I asked him, I said, Nick, I need to know, I'll give you the set of plans, take a look at it, give me a for instance for phase one. So that could be like the barometer and from what, everything else is measured from. Phase one appears to be the largest phase. So with phase one, I said, give me an idea as to how long it would take you to construct the road, to cut the trees, construct the roads, the infrastructure, and take it to paving. And this is what he's provided me. So up on the screen, what you'll see is he's anticipating, he said that you could expect that, and again, looking at purely at phase one, tree clearing of the roads and the stormwater basins is about a couple weeks to do that. The logging, which would begin in the second week, would take about 1 to 2 weeks. So that would be, and again, we could tell the public that, no, there are going to be no construction vehicles out on these roads, but we're not going to do that. So there will be construction vehicles out on those roads, like I said, primarily the Sutton roads. The logging would begin in week 2, and that's about a 1 to 2 week period. After that, they would look to mobilize the earthworks equipment. That would take about 2 days. That would be the equipment that would be staying on site, the equipment that would be used for processing the material, your excavators, your loaders, your dumps on site as well, your rollers, and your graders. Then would come the construction of the roadways and the stormwater basins, with the focus on the stormwater basins first. He said you're probably looking at a 2-crew operation, so I could find out how many people that would be if the board is interested. He said that process in terms of construction of roadways in the stormwater basin is about a 2 to 3 month period. We're looking roughly at about 2,100 feet in this phase, which would be, like I said, from Duval Road in Sutton up into the site and around that loop. That would, again, the on-site processing of materials will occur as excavated and as needing with water being applied for dust controls. That process is about 5 to 7 days, he figures, to process the material. Then he would expect, in addition to that, you're probably looking at dump trucks coming to and from the site 2 to 3 times per week for sand and additional crushed stone as necessary for the utility and drainage installation. Then, once that is all done, they would, they'd go into the road paving up to binder course. So they would have trucking of processed gravel for subgrade, which he said is about a 5 to 6 day period. Trucking of the asphalt paving for the road surface, about 3 to 4 days, and trucking of the asphalt pavement for the road berm installations, about 3 days. Then they would move into the sidewalks. Again, trucking of processed gravel about 2 days, trucking of the asphalt paving, and obviously during this time it's all being installed. Trucking of the asphalt paving another 2 days, and spreading and processing, spreading the processed loam about 7 to 8 days, and then hydroseeding about a day, untwisted.
So what was your total on the phase one?
So that
Approximate,
yeah,
I mean, you're
yeah.
probably looking at 45 days plus minus.
Yeah, so you're looking.
At least.
Yeah, Madam Chair, you're looking at, just with the roadways, you're looking at 2 to 3 months. So we're figuring.
Right, I'm saying plus minus.
Yeah.
45 days.
Yeah.
There's no
Weather,
way you
holidays.
can even time of year.
Yeah,
So, we're like 6 months for
there you go.
phase one.
That's
I could have
correct.
told, yeah, I could
Yeah,
have
yeah,
saved you the 1 to 2 days.
yeah. So, but I figured.
So
but I
the idea here,
You're gonna be doing
Yeah.
some of the work.
So-
You're gonna be doing
yeah, I'm going to put him
The
out.
reason, Madam Chair, that I had done that was just for the benefit of the audience, because they have raised concerns like what's going to be happening out there. And so we just want to kind of lay it out. This is the type of activity. These are the types of trucks. So as I was saying it, I saw you smiling, and I should have gone right
Not
to the 6
laugh.
months. you know?
Yeah.
Wait a
Yeah.
minute.
Yeah,
Cut short.
So,
6 months if everything goes right.
yeah, and that again is weather
ahead of
permitting.
schedule, under budget.
Yeah,
Let's
well, we
shoot
know
for
that's
that.
not gonna happen.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
basically what, so part of that, some of the concerns that have been raised were raised by, again, by the Sutton residents along Duval Road. Some of them being the closest to like Road B. There was one abutter, the Davids, that had raised concerns. And so what we said is, you know, that is one area that we would look to work with. So let's assume for a minute that Flynn Bill Develop and Sutton Douglas Development received the approvals to allow them to start construction this summer. What we would look to do is, while the vegetation is still heavy, begin the work and then work toward Road B, closest to, right there, as Tim is pointed in the first curve, somewhere in there, work that so as to minimize the impact on the residents in Sutton. Try to focus on that at first, so that when the foliage drops, they'll be further away from those homeowners. So again, we do have a situation here where we're not riding on top of the grade. There are some cuts, there are some fills. In that particular area, we've got a little bit of a cut of the roadway, so that kind of helps in terms of a couple things. One, during construction, you have the earth berm as a somewhat of a sound barrier, and then after construction, in terms of headlights. I bring up the headlights now because that was a concern that was raised by Mr. Maynard, who lives at the corner of the proposed development. What we had done, Tim, if you wouldn't mind just quickly scrolling to the very last two slides, just to kind of give the board a little bit of a flavor of what we're thinking. So what we had done as part of addressing Mr. Maynard's concerns is we had provided him with a couple sections as we're cutting through his house.
Do you want this one?
Yeah, let's look at the plan view first, and then you can just scroll down. So what you see are these two lines, one of them drawn from the property line to the right, pretty close to where Tim's cursor is, two section lines. From the property line to the right, God, you were useless.
Hey. Negative talk.
All right, I'm more useless.
Yeah.
Tim, can you just move that cursor, please? So that property line section over to Mr. Maynard's house, and then we ran another one as you're coming down the roadway headed eastbound on Duval. How do the lights affect his house? So we created this first section. So the first section shows the section that runs from the property line through the first basin, across the roadway, through the second basin, and the vegetation. So what you see to the right of that lower section exhibit, you see the trees that are shown in the plan view. One of those trees closer to the roadway is a proposed planting. The other thing that you see is after the roadway, obviously where the vehicles are, you see additional trees, and after we get through the basin, we're proposing some evergreens. What we're looking at is a blue spruce type of tree. At planting, about 3 inches in diameter, 8-foot height. A couple of years or a year later, that will go to a 10-foot height, and then after that, it'll go to full growth within 10 years. So right out of the gate.
Yeah, no impact on sight line
No.
over there?
No, and that's a great
See.
question. Terrific. Yep, terrific question. So as you can see, looking at coming out of the main road, which is in gray, if you were to pull through, Tim, coming out, if you were positioning the vehicle, and as you pull through, no lines of sight issues as we're looking
Okay.
to the east.
Good.
So one of the things that the Sutton Planning Board had asked us to do was not only look at that, but look at Road B, the area that I was talking about that we would look to work in at first. Look at Road B and see what it looks like when the cars come around, and see how it affects those abutters. If it does affect those abutters in terms of lights, and if we're not able to accomplish that with the grading that we proposed, they've asked for a little bit of evergreen plantings to kind of break that up. So that's one of the things that we're looking at. So thank you for your time with my gibberish. And with that said, I know that, like I said, we have Courtney Sudak here. So I wanted to, for a minute, and Courtney, you might be at the plate in a second, my friend. So Tim, if you could scroll back to the traffic route plan, which would be that baby right there. So, those were study area intersections, maybe
study
prior
areas.
to that, Chris?
Tim?
Tim? Got you mixed up
No,
with.
just your client.
There
That's
you go. I get you. Sorry. Former client, I guess. So one of the questions that has come up with this board, with the Conservation Commission, with the board over in Sutton is, where are these trucks coming from? So with that, I know there are a couple sources of material. There's pine, sand and gravel, and that whole operation up there at Gilboa. There is, which one?
Lane.
Yep, that's the other one. There are a number of facilities from which this could come. So what we did is we reached out to Tetra Tech to identify those locations. And Courtney, if you wouldn't mind identifying yourself and just going through this exhibit here? Thank you.
Sure. For the record, Courtney Sudak, Tetra Tech. So as Wayne said, we developed this graphic here. So the dashed blue lines represent potential truck haul routes, and it shows you the paths that would likely be taken to and from the regional highway system. So in this case, Route 146 to the east, I-395 up off to the northwest of the page. And in case there's any facilities located to or from the south, we did look at to or from Route 16. So we looked at MassDOT's database for truck restrictions, and the only ones in the area, as you can see, we've shown with photos of weight limits and by type of vehicle. And this was prepared for triaxle dump trucks, since that's the vehicle expected to go to or from the site. And at any location where there was a critical turn that could be tight for a larger vehicle to make, we ran turning templates, particularly at Duval at Mumford and Duval at Birch and Torrey. And a triaxle dump truck does appear to be able to make those turns. So that's why the potential routes include Mumford Road as well as Torrey Road and Birch Street.
Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney.
Okay, so while we're on the traffic, do we want to go through the review letter?
I would love to, Madam Chair. I don't know if, Courtney, if you had a chance to take a look at that. Certainly that is all a foreign language to me.
We did take a cursory look, and there didn't seem to be anything that was unexpected or significant, but we do need a little more time to formally respond and potentially discuss any questions we have with MD.
Okay, all right, so you don't want the board's feedback on any of these suggested improvements?
Oh, if the board has any suggestions or questions, I'd be happy to review those with you. We just haven't formally reviewed each of their comments, but if you have your own questions
Want to
or
just
comments,
hold?
that's fine.
We could just hold for now. I mean, I'm looking for the majority of these suggestions to be incorporated into the project.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Typically, we anticipate getting a response in writing from the applicant at that point, and then it goes back to our consultant for another review anyways. And as Mr. Swicker and I were talking about earlier, that's, at that time, we want our consultant to be present at the meeting to be able to answer and follow up on any of that.
Okay. And same as the other review letter?
Yes, that's correct. There was not
okay.
much, Madam Chair, on that.
There is one, I think, sticking point that we should probably address and hash out before you depart.
Sure.
Okay.
Street width.
Yeah, I just said that.
So
That'd be comment number
let's
7.
have a positive conversation about that to see the pros, cons of,
There's a comment on it.
yeah, number 7. waiver was requested to allow 50-foot. Additionally, the waiver request notes that while not specified in the rules and regulations, a 24-foot pavement width is typical in Douglas and was requested to allow a 22-foot pavement width along Road B, Road C, and Road D. So, GEI has no issue with these right-of-way and pavement widths and understands the planning board will address waiver requests. So, I think if you could just highlight the pros of the 22-foot, the restraints of the lot, kind of concisely.
Sure.
And then we'll open it up to the board's concerns.
Okay, I'll try to do it concisely, Madam Chair. So basically, we are requesting this, again, in part, that is a lid principle, kind of thinking small, minimizing the pavement, which would reduce the stormwater runoff from the site and result in smaller basins, less clearing, and that was primarily the thought process with that. In speaking with, as I had mentioned at one point, the 22-foot pavement width reduction, I was looking to seek relief on that on Road B, which is the loop road, the cul-de-sac that comes off of that, and originally for loop Road D, which comes off of Road A up to Forest Street. However, when speaking with the public safety officials, they had concerns with that being only 22 foot wide coming up to Forest Street. They wanted to see it 24. So what we're looking at is, a consideration for a 24-foot pavement width for Road A and Road D, and a 22-foot pavement width for the loop road and the cul-de-sac Road C that comes off of that. We did take a look at some other roads in town recently constructed at 24 feet and feel that, that 24-foot width is an adequate width for Road A and Road D. Based on the graphics that Courtney had presented at the last meeting, and looking at the travel speeds and the volumes anticipated from the subdivision, it's not going to be a cut-through subdivision because of the way the roads are configured, so that it's not going to generate a tremendous amount of traffic volume. Based on what she had come up with at less than 400 trips per day, the recommendation from I think it was MassDOT or the Institute of Traffic Engineers, the ITE manual, was that 22 feet was adequate. Hearing the concerns of the public safety officials, again, from our perspective, it would seem that 24-foot pavement width for Road A and Road D would suffice, but looking at the volumes generated on roads B and C, they're far lower than that called out in the ITE for a 22-foot pavement width. We'd like the board's consideration of a 22-foot pavement width for those two roads.
So through the chair, echoing on my comrade, I shouldn't use that word during this time.
No, not a...
Board member, Mr. Sawicka, is that I don't find how many trips of cars a day have anything to do with the road width, but it's more when you have snow removal and you have, snow's on the side, and then you have trucks coming in to make deliveries, whether it's to one vehicle, one house a day, that you get two at the same time, and it's going to happen. So I don't know that trip generating to me is that important regarding the width, but the width is the width on an everyday basis for two vehicles, two trucks at any given time. So I think I agree with Mike, is what you said all along, maybe.
Okay. Could I ask one question before you start? Do you have a percentage of the reduction of the basins?
In terms of numbers?
So 2 foot times the lengths of those two roadways?
Sure, so I typically, in a rough sizing, and I hit it pretty good. Before we even run the, just so you know, before we run the hydrology, what we'll do is we'll look at the impervious area tributary to a basin and say, okay, it generates this volume of impervious runoff. So roughly, you're looking at 3 to 4 inches of runoff over the impervious area. So if we take off, let's say, 2 feet, let's just, for simple numbers, 2 feet, if the whole subdivision was considered. 2 feet over the whole subdivision would be about 5,000 foot of road, 2 foot wide, 10,000 square feet. 10,000 square feet at a 4-inch depth is, so that's 0.5, so that's roughly 4,000 cubic feet. And at 4,000 cubic feet divided by 27, in terms of 4,000, what would that be well, 4,000 cubic feet of volume to the basin.
So
Sorry.
my original question, do you have a percentage of the reduction of the basins if you are allowed to do the 22 feet for the 2 roadways?
Versus 24 feet.
Correct.
Versus, off the top of my head, Madam Chair, I don't.
Okay. So I guess 6, so percentage-wise, it'd be like 16%.
So if you're looking at, the percentage in
Additional.
reduction. Yeah, so,
2 times, yeah.
yeah, so I'm thinking that, yeah, I think I know what you're doing. So it's about 1,300 feet, 600 feet, so it's roughly 2,000 linear feet, 2,100 feet of road for B and C. So if we had that reduced by 2,000, so we based our sizing of our basins on the 22 feet tributary to those areas. If it were 24 feet, then it would increase the size.
Right. So more impact, more area that's
Yeah.
touched,
More land clearing.
more land clearing.
More stormwater.
I mean, there is consequences. They have presented the plan. It's been reviewed. The reviewer, our peer review has no concerns, no issue. I mean, I think we have to weigh the pluses and the minuses of just 2-foot width. And the roadways that are adjacent to this subdivision are how wide?
So recently with the repaving of Duval Road, directly opposite of where we're coming out is now at 23.5 feet, so pretty close to the normal width. Going up to Forest, between a couple of the utility poles is 19 feet. So roughly at one pinch point on Forest, not far from the site, is about 17 feet in width. That varies anywhere between, let's say, 17 and 20 for the most part. When you get out on Belvoir, that opens up, that's the widest road in that development. Down by the intersection, it's 25 feet down at Birch. And then throughout the rest of it, it's about a normal 24-foot width along Belvoir.
Right. And we're also talking about higher speeds with wider width roads. So there's pluses and minuses. Yes, Mrs. Wicker, yes.
Through the chair. I mean, I have no problem, I'd compromise, no problem if you had 24 throughout. The main thing is this, we all see the garbage trucks and everything else in the mornings, taking a long 10-wheeler, doing those tight radius curves and everything in those streets with the narrow roads. While you're doing construction, I want to see you turn the triaxle up into that little 22-foot road area without going across your neighbor's front yard. It's not going to happen. I mean, I know for a fact it's not going to happen. Take a triaxle on a narrow road like that and tell them to make that 90-degree turn. It's pretty much impossible. And not only that, on this one road, if anybody ever came up from the Douglas side, they could never do the reverse corner right there at that intersection. There's no way, no truck is going to make that reverse corner.
Well, they can't travel to other streets in Douglas either.
That's correct, but if you have fire apparatus or anything, I want to see the drawings of 30-foot fire truck or a 40-foot fire straight axle
Yeah.
truck make that corner.
So that, and
That's 24 feet.
Yep.
But now do it up in this area
Yep.
where it's 22.
thank you, Mr. Zwicker, I appreciate
Through
your
the chair,
questions.
through the chair.
Through the chair. I've been good with that, until just now. Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the chair. We do have the software that models this. It models it horizontally and vertically. Most firms don't have that. We're fortunate enough to do that. We can take any vehicle by make and model. Same thing with the fire apparatus, the Bronco, whatever they call it, the fire truck. So we can take a triaxle, a moving vehicle, a WB67, and run it through.
Okay, so what I'd like to come to a consensus though tonight, so that we're not getting down the road with this redesign, is, and this is not a waiver request. This is as the plan is presented. So we need to give the applicant a heads up if the board has a consensus that they're going to reject the application with the 22-foot as planned for those two roadways. Yes, Mr. Marks.
Originally, you started out, what was the number? Was 18 you wanted first, and then you went to 20, now you're up to 22?
I'm sorry, 18.
When you first came in with, you wanted to reduce the road to 18, and then you went up to 20, now you're up to 22.
The traffic and.
So through the chair, yes, that's a good question. What you saw at that last meeting was showing the various volumes and what those volumes could support for pavement width. So you're right, there was the 18, the 20, and the 22.
All right, my feeling, I mean, I push for the wider roads also, but if, I work for the highway superintendent, and I was on the fire department for many years, and if those two feel that 22 is adequate for them, I will compromise on the 22 on the plans that you have. I'd like to see 24, but I'm satisfied you came up to 22, and I'm okay with it.
Just so the chair, he's 24 in the main trunk?
Yeah, 24, and
then-
then it's going to
and
go
then on the
down
outlets, he's
22 to the, yeah.
we
Well,
have
Road D, through the chair, apologies, Forest Street. The connection to Forest Street is still 24.
So, Mr. Benoit, do we get feedback from those two departments, fire and highway?
We did meet with tech review, but I'll be sure to get that ready for next meeting, just
Okay.
so we have it.
Okay, all right.
Thank
And
you.
if I may, through the
Yes.
chair, and we've all seen it before, we're planning now for the equipment that we have now. They get new equipment. I saw it in Millbury. They decided to buy a fire truck that doesn't even fit in the fire station. So the town goes ahead now with these new warehouses coming in, and they decide to get bigger fire trucks, obviously for the warehouses, et cetera. Now all of a sudden, we set a road up for a truck 10 feet long, now we got one 20 feet long. It doesn't work if you do it at 10. And you know, and I all know, with these larger warehouses coming in, eventually they'll be getting bigger apparatus for handling these big warehouses. And those trucks are not gonna be turning in these narrow roads. I know we have a lot of old roads in the town, but that's why we're called the planning board. We're planning for years down the road when newer equipment comes around, et cetera. Half these roads in this town were designed with horse and buggies. Well, yes, they work now, but could have they been wider and made a lot nicer? Sure. And that's why they've come up with planning boards, to try to plan for further down the road, like brought up North Street Bridge, the wide roads. Let's see a vehicle make the corner with vehicles parked on the other lane. They can't do it.
No,
You have
they
to back
cannot.
up. You have to move.
Yeah,
So
it's a
that's
struggle.
why we're planning here. And I'll go with 24, but I'd like to see 24 throughout. So,
Madam Chair, I'm fine with the plan as presented, the 24 and then the 22 reduction around.
And allow the 50-foot right-of-way versus the 60? So that is a waiver requested.
Excuse me, Madam Chair,
Yes.
we're fine with the 60 at this point, because what we found is that the 60 tends to work better with the trees behind the sidewalk, and it keeps them out of, so we're fine with
Okay, great.
not requesting that waiver, thank you.
That's good. So now we have an extra 10 feet of
Right away.
public way, right-of-way width. So no waiver requested.
And I believe you're going with the Cape Cod curving.
We are,
So I
yes.
think that's it's not like it's that sharp right angle curb that's gonna be popping tires.
Running off.
Correct.
Yeah.
This development's on the outskirts of town. It's not, if it was like Downs Road where cars cut across from southeast to south, consistently, I would do, I'd be more looking for the 24, but I think where it was originally requested either 18 or 20, now it's at 22, I think that's a fair compromise, and I don't see an issue.
Okay. Barnett, anything else? I think everything else is, you can edit pretty easily.
Vote on it?
No consensus.
Okay.
Yes.
On the mailbox, is there gonna be a light there and a turnout, or what, do you have it, or you just starting preliminary on design on that?
No, through the chair, it will have a turnout off to the side. So what I had done is I had gone up to Joseph Road and looked at their mailbox. So we've done a number of these, but what I wanted to see was what was this board comfortable with? And so I went up there and took a look at what they had proposed, and clearly if they proposed it, the board was comfortable with it. So we're looking at that roughly in length, it's about 40 feet, which is what we would typically do, 8 foot wide with a little bit of a rounding to come in and then pull out. So basically what that allows for is obviously for the letter carrier to do his thing, but then allows for a queue, a little bit of a queue. One vehicle pulls in, pulls up front, hops out, gets the mail, another vehicle right behind him.
And it's also an intersection too, so it kind of helps.
Correct.
Awesome.
That's, yeah, and one of the things that we learned from the postmaster was that they'd like to utilize those intersections as a turnaround and make their way back through Douglas.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to open it up to the public. Anyone have any comments or questions regarding this agenda item? Yes, name and address,
Gary
please.
Prince on Water Street.
Yeah.
Are you going to have streetlights throughout the development?
Yeah.
Is there a waiver for that?
Yeah, that was, you needed the
At the intersections.
Yeah, is it
Yeah.
an intersection building?
plans need to include a construction detail for the light pole itself. Note stating that streetlights in Douglas will meet all Douglas requirements.
Yes, so through the chair?
Yes.
We are proposing streetlights at the intersection, as Mr. Zwicker had just indicated. So they're at the intersections, they will be night sky compliant, so they're not going to be like the city of Worcester. So they will be
Dark sky,
night
yeah.
sky compliant, just
Yeah.
driving the light back down. Typically with the night sky compliant fixtures, the foot candle distribution is pretty limited and more directed to that area, so you don't get that light pollution.
So short answer, yes, in accordance with our regulations.
In accordance with your regulations.
Intersections.
So it'll be one way to the corner of Forest and Road.
Right, with no light pollution.
Yep.
I hope not, because my bedroom's right there.
It's dark sky shielding lights, so no,
Do you know what side of the roads?
I do not know.
We have that on the plan through the chair.
Yeah.
I believe we went to the opposite side of the road from the Prince's house. I am not sure, but I believe we had. Not
It's
sure.
on-
Actually, it might be on their side now that I'm thinking of it. It might be on their side.
Which, was it in plans and profiles?
You have your plans, Tim?
Or even if it's on,
So those would be, Madam Chair, on the plan and profile sheets, probably on one of the last ones, Road D at the intersection of Forest. I'll take that, Tim, thanks.
Road B.
D would be
See.
at Forest, so it's kind of like a 24-foot wide one. No, that's not Forest. Oh, yeah.
Relocate utility pole to transit own utilities.
So that's what they would tell.
With uplights.
Yeah.
Is this different?
Where do we have
Yeah.
that sucker? We have the,
Shall govern.
huh,
His house isn't on this plan.
Shown in the,
I'm not seeing it. Let me take another look at one of the other sheets, Tim. It would be perhaps the line of
Right,
sight
read it.
profile sheets.
Yeah.
Yes. So can we table your question until the next meeting? We'll just confirm which side of the street it's on.
Okay, one other part of that question.
Yep.
Who pays for electricity for us?
The town.
Town does?
Through the
Yeah, once it's adopted as a public way.
All streetlights?
Yes.
Streets run by the town?
Yes, that's why we have the energy efficient ones now. Okay, anyone else in the audience have any questions or concerns regarding this? Could you see, sir, with your hand up, I don't know what your name is. Okay, all right, what is your name and address, please, sorry?
Yes, Mike Lacey, 18th 4th Street. My concerns is not directly involving the development, but as a side effect of the development. The contractors or developers have talked about phase 1, but there is more to this development than just the excavation of the site or the site development. You're going to be building 31 houses, all the foundations, all the concrete trucks. And unless you can guarantee that they're going to use the dewall, say, egress, there's going to be a lot of the drivers that are going to go down Forest Street. And if you look at Forest Street, number one, it doesn't even get close to 22 feet in width, and most of the roads are pretty well torn up. I've lived there for 35 years, right on the corner of Forest Street and Fairfax Way, and people come screaming from that corner. I'm sure those truck drivers use time to the trash drivers go around those corners pretty fast. So there's going to be a major effect on those roads, and it's going to last for 6 months or more, because you're not going to build that development in 30 days. So I would like some guarantee from the contractors or a bond, something the planning board puts out, saying in fact that they're going to guarantee those roads are going to be able to be transferred by the people living there as well as during the construction period.
You want to speak
Madam
to that?
Chair, I do appreciate that question. I think that, again, is another good question and a legitimate concern. I would ask the same question. What I have found is in the developments that I've worked on, is it ultimately comes down to this guy. If this guy does his job, which I know he will, is part of what they direct the drivers to do, is they tell them, your traffic routes are here. You're coming down Duval, you're not going up through here. Again, as I said at the beginning, that's not to say that a carpenter on his way to a site, or even a guy that's doing the site work, is not going to come through Forest. I mean, that I'd be lying if I said that. But I think that, again, like anybody else, we all know as motorists, we're going to go the path of least resistance when in a passenger vehicle. But I think the construction vehicles ultimately come down to Mr. Flynn and how he directs his crews.
So our construction management plan dictates and will dictate, it's obviously not drafted, well, it's preliminary drafted but not finalized. Our construction management plan dictates routes, it dictates times. So for instance, I'm working on a project in Boston right now. We know that through our traffic studies that folks left around 7 a.m. every morning. So we shifted the job site from 8 to 4. Typically, as we all know, job sites are 7 to 3. So we shifted it from 8 to 4, no deliveries before 8 a.m., no deliveries after 4 p.m., as to not interfere with the local residents. Happy to do that here.
Okay.
Whatever we need to do to limit the impact, we're happy to have the conversation.
Okay, can we incorporate that into your conditions?
In terms
Yes.
of, yeah.
Can
Yeah,
you give us a copy and, I don't
Of
know
the
when
construction
you'll-
management
Yeah.
plan? Absolutely.
Okay,
Through the chair, is it possible maybe to consider truck, like construction truck entrance signs and have them to enter through Duval Road? They put 2 signs up at, off of the street and say, construction truck is to enter.
Madam Chair, I think that's a great suggestion, and I think this is where I defer back to my friend Courtney Sudak on that, because I think as part
on
of their
here,
plan, that's what
Yeah.
they're looking at.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we will wait, but yes. Yeah,
Yes, we can prepare a transportation management plan that, outlines where the signs can go and that
It's like
sort of
temporary signs.
okay, sir, is your question answered? As far as the concern with the construction vehicles and their path, as far as you were looking also for an answer on if there's any damage that occurs to the roadways, right?
Yes, that is one of my concerns, and I'm sure other folks, both within the development and in the existing development. We all know the fact that you can set all the routes you want out there. I've been in management for a number of years, and you can tell your supervisors and whatever what they have to do or should do. Doesn't mean you're going to guarantee to do it. And we need some assurances the fact that if in fact there is damage to the Forest Street or the other Fairfax Way, the other roads, that it will be taken care of.
So I think we had a similar condition in the ASD Wallem solar for Wallem Lake Road. If we could check on that language for the time that the project was under construction, I believe we wrote something in there.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Okay, Miss? Yes.
FJ, 12 Belmore Avenue. I just want to know, and maybe this is a dumb question, but has the project been approved by Sutton? And if it hasn't been, and say they don't approve it, what then happens to your plan? Because I think there are 29 houses in Douglas and only 2 in Sutton, if I have that right. So what happens then to the construction route and, everything that we've outlined here tonight?
I can answer that, Madam Chair, through the chair. The dialogue with the Sutton Planning Board, they have yet to approve the plan. We met with them again on Monday night. The feedback they were getting is very favorable from the Sutton Planning Board. We don't expect a denial, as the Madam Chair, if a board does deny, you need to have some pretty solid grounds for denial. So.
Right, it's not a special permit.
You can't hear.
The project is not yet approved in Sutton. They've had favorable feedback on what's been presented, and they don't anticipate a denial.
Thank you.
It is not a special permit.
It is not.
So it's pretty much a conditional approval, condition with control as a permit. So I don't think that that's even an option of being denied in Sutton, but it's not approved yet. Yes, Mr. Bernard? Yep.
Thank you through the chair. I also spoke with Jen Hager, the planning director in Sutton. I spoke to her today. Just talking about order of operations and if something were like that were to happen. So it's interesting that you actually asked that question this evening. I asked the same thing. So what if we were to approve this and Sutton were then to deny theirs? That changes everything, right? So it was my at least understanding or opinion that this board should, in fact, wait for Sutton's decision before you move forward. So.
Yep.
Just a follow-up. So let's just be optimistic for the Flynn Development Company here and say that it's approved by both Sutton and Douglas. Can someone, and maybe this is a question for Madam Chair, what are the next steps? In general timeline as far as, is this going to start January? Will it start in July? That kind of thing.
The building permit would need to be applied for.
Okay.
So depending on the process, the phase 1, all permits would need to be in place. Things recorded, bond, covenants, so.
And typically, are we saying a year? Are we saying 6 months?
Probably less than 6 months. You're welcome. Okay. All right. Ready to continue. Not seeing anyone else on the screen. I have a 7:30 on April 28th. I'll entertain a motion to continue.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Zwicker.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Schultzberg for April 28th at 7:30 PM. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, folks, much appreciated. Thank you, guys.
Tracy?
You as well.
To vote on it.
Continue.
Everybody enjoy the holiday weekend, by the way.
Oh, all those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, thank you.
Members of the board, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. She didn't hear me.
She called him Chris.
I knew it, I knew that was your name.
And no, and one way or another, we're sitting there with what,
Okay,
Jane. Jane's Wicker.
anything quick before we get
Yeah.
to,
You're good at.
the solar?
He gets
You
all
wanna
the
buzz
solar,
through?
right?
Any word from Ken?
Madam Chair, I have not heard from Mr., I almost said Sawyer, my goodness. Mr.
Your
Fraser,
favorite
so I
person.
would recommend the board continue that hearing to the 20th.
Okay,
In this time?
yep.
Yeah, 4 days, but I can deliver an oral report to town meeting.
Let's do, 7:20 on April 28th. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr.
Second.
Stevens, second by Mr. Sokrat. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that was to continue the public hearing for amendments to section 10 definitions.
Yes.
Okay, and then we've got Cobblestone Lane, portions there, as-built layout.
Yeah, I'll try to cover some of these. This is just an FYI for us.
Okay,
This was something I was going to try to push for spring town meeting.
Right.
These are some of the items that just need to be addressed before this can come to fruition for public road acceptance. And these have been delivered to the developer. We don't have a timeline yet on when some of these items will be addressed, but he was on site at the time and committed to doing so.
okay. Okay, and then Gilboa Court Extension?
Gilboa Court Extension surety calculation. This is a request to establish a bond and then to release lots. Due to order of operations and the timeliness of getting some of these documents in, we don't have anything for the board to sign at this time, but the developer is just asking for the board to approve the amount of this estimate, which is $33,500 is a reasonable amount to cover the remaining work identified there.
Okay.
And then at the next meeting, we'll have some documents for signature to establish the bond and to release the loans.
Okay. This was reviewed, peer reviewed, so I'll entertain a motion.
So moved for the bond of $33,500.
Motion made by Mr. Zwicker, seconded by Mr. Sokrat. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
One other item before we get to solar.
Okay.
We have a draft covenant in the signature folder for Hawk Hill Farm, our residential compound. This is vetted by town council. This kind of came in within the last 48 hours or so and kept it on as a agenda item, so to speak. The covenant did get vetted and signed and notarized by all parties. We're just looking for signatures from the board. Motion to approve the covenant, so to speak, I guess.
I'll entertain a motion
Or to endorse.
to endorse the covenant for Hawk Hill Farms.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Mr. Zwicker, Mr. Greco, seconded by Mr. Zwicker. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, and we have an update for Wallen Lake Solar Project. We have a very thick review from Graves Engineering. Oh, it's hydro stuff.
Yeah, it's comprehensive.
Yeah, that's not.
So for the folks that are still waiting on the line here, Benny, the update I have for Wallen Lake Solar is that we had our peer review of the stormwater system come in on April 6th. This is provided to the AMP Solar folks for a response in advance of this meeting, but they were unable to produce a response in advance of this meeting. This is a public document, and given the concern from the residents in Shore Road about this, I felt it was important to be able to update the board. Our consultant has identified some items with their system that may or may not be correct, for lack of better phrasing. The hydrology model, the time of concentration was listed correctly. There may be some corrections needed to be made to the outlet control structures, which is substantial. So we believe that we have some items here that we intend, that we expect AMP Solar will need to address moving forward and at least provide a response to this board. This isn't necessarily an answer to some of the questions that have come up, but this is our town's due diligence performed by a very good review done by Graves Engineering, and I'm proud to circulate this to the residents that are interested. I'm not, Amp Solar did say that they would hopefully have a response to us before our April 28th meeting, but remains to be seen at this time.
Right,
But
busy time.
that's what I'm hoping to continue to update the neighborhood. This is all we can really cover right now, is we're reviewing stormwater, and that's about it. As far as anything else, whether it's conservation or open emergency repair orders, private road, private property, all that stuff we can't cover here this evening. We're just covering the stormwater review, which we have had done, and now we're waiting for them to respond to said review.
Okay,
Excellent.
Good.
okay.
Cool.
All right, thank you for the update. Meeting minutes?
I think we just got the right. Nope, wait.
He approved last time everything. I thought that
March 10th?
already approved it.
March 10th are brand new.
Brandon,
We just got 'em.
wait.
Okay, let's hold on those. Mr. Benoit, anything else?
What's this here? Cobblestone and,
It was just FYI.
just FYI?
Yeah, they weren't ready. They didn't make it for a
Yeah,
town
I did the
meeting.
site walk with them, with Matt
Yeah.
and John, and, yeah.
To the chair,
Yes?
just how are we making out on bounds? Pretty good?
Our consultant has not responded to me lately, so I'm glad you asked.
The one you recommended?
Because I was going through my notes the other day, and I seen about the bounds.
So busy.
I'm glad you
Everyone's so
asked.
I'd like to know what kind of update we got going
Yeah,
on here.
it's, as we're getting into this season, I would expect this to start to kick off, but I will follow up with him again. I appreciate reminding me.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And if I can, to the chair, one other thing. Remember when we did the tri-town? We had the town's consultant engineer always on the screen for every
Yes,
meeting.
yes.
Where we're dealing with these million-square-foot warehouses, these big buildings, I'd like to have the engineer on screen, so when the questions and things are brought up, we have that oversight, if you know what I mean. Everything's been done awesomely, but something could be lost in transact,
Mentioned in the meeting.
between what we're asking and what's being relayed.
Yeah, I agree.
I think on these larger projects,
There's a lot at stake.
we need to have that happening to protect ourselves and for the information.
Yeah, and I think just a request, if we request it ahead of time, I think that they're
could
more than willing to come
Right,
in.
and that's, I'm just picking it up.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
I mean, I know, like I said, the tri-town was a good learning experience to see how everybody else does it, and right off the bat, the consultant's there, so that any questions that are fired away, or he can say, no, let me look into that, or he might say, well, law says this.
Let me just grab these guys.
So,
Mr. Bentley?
Question?
Hello.
Hello, name and address, and if you want to just briefly speak for a couple moments.
Yeah, it is. This was on Wall of Solars.
Yeah, nope, not
Okay,
anymore,
yes.
but I didn't see any hands up, so.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Greg Bentley, 119 Shore Road. I just wanted to, and for what, if anybody cares, I am a 40-year professional engineer, highway guy with lots of planning board experience, so I'm not talking from the sky.
Thank you.
I would just say, I hope that everyone who's involved in this has seen the videos of the original, it was several months ago, but anecdotally, the entire stormwater system, detention system there was failing pretty miserably during the storm several months ago. We got a pretty good video of it. It looked like undersized, certainly looked like undersized detention ponds. It was definitely some incorrect elevations on the outlet structures, and more importantly, the downstream silt fence was actually acting as detention in those videos, which was scary as could be. Never intended to be, and my understanding is that they're going to want to remove some of that silt fence soon. So
I'm glad, I haven't seen the Graves report yet, would love to see it. But I also wanted to just ask, is there any, in your procedurals, is there any possibility of a post-implementation study? Because this peer review is actually of the original design, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's any, you know, we're still in a hideous situation down at the bottom of the hill. And we unfortunately have two variants here. One is that we had a 12-inch pipe that was supposed to stay on private property and go under the road and be maintained, and it clearly is not. It's been downsized and degraded. And the other is that we appear to have a much increased water flow down at the bottom of the hill. And it did continue through the winter. I don't know if it was not as severe as it was last summer, but we've got, you know, I'm sure you're aware, there's several homes down there, including ours, with some pretty severe damage occurring. The flow pattern at the bottom of the hill on the east side of the road has completely changed now. It used to go under a historic path in front of 115 through that 12-inch pipe, and now it's finding its way towards Rhode Island and causing all kinds of groundwater issues under the houses and so forth, and has on several occasions jumped the road and caused severe damage at 117. So I just hope everybody's aware of that, and just want to let you know we're still far from feeling comfortable that we have a solution here yet. It may be that vegetation and some other, I understand there's been some interim improvements. It may be that will do something, but this was not a minor failed stormwater situation. This was a world-class engineering catastrophe, and we're not at all certain yet that we're there, and we want to get there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your attention and all you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There may be a provision for post-construction stats on that stormwater if in the permit. I'm pretty sure we typically do. If there's an issue, we revisit it. Mrs. Lawrence?
Thank you. So yeah, I want to emphasize that the traditional path of the water is being changed by this and by the blockage at the culvert, or it has been. And I also want to ask two questions. One is, what is the status of the Massachusetts DEP site visit? And the other is, did you just mention in a prior discussion that there's something in the arrangement with the Wilder Farm that would put a bond up for damages to people, you know, to the neighborhood? Is there any provision for that?
Yep, sure. Yeah.
Through the chair. First item, the DEP response. From what I understand, there was a sidewalk involving a lot of folks. I wasn't working there at the time, and DEP was there, right? But I don't believe either myself, Steve Sisk, or anyone has heard any response from DEP from that sidewalk. That is unfortunate, but it's nothing that we've heard back from yet. The second item being the bond. They did post a $90,000 stormwater bond with us. November, possibly December. So we did get those funds in hand to handle these systems if AMP Solar were to not address the problem. But at the same time, we commissioned this peer review. Now, it took a little longer than we anticipated because he had to go through this with a fine-tooth comb, but he did, and he's given us a great review here. And I mentioned in an email to you earlier, I am going to circulate this tomorrow morning to everybody you have on that chain, so everyone gets copies to this record. It is public record. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I was at the site visit, and I also had a wetlands, you know, person who specializes in building in the wetlands, and a wetlands biologist come as well, who may be able to add to this. But meanwhile, as time drags on, the water is making a new river under my house, right? Not through my house, it's through my foundation, and I don't know how that's going to change once it forms. And I also just want to emphasize that I show up a lot, kind of because I believe in the process, and I believe you're all volunteers, and you appeal to fair argument. But a lot of people who are concerned about it don't show up because they don't actually believe that. And I don't know if you care, but it, you know, I think it's very good you're having the peer review, and I appreciate that. There have been other things we will go into now that have aggravated the situation a lot, that the town has had more authority to deal with and they haven't. And so I'll talk to Mr. Benoit about that, I guess, separately, but one party is blaming the other party, and so then nothing has happened.
Okay, thank you. And also, Mrs. Myers actually wrote to Steve today, and he responded. He didn't receive any documents, just a voice message from DEP. So anything with the conservation or DEP, you can direct to Mr. Ziss. And he'll have the answer or no answer.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, board, we have a couple of things to say.
We have a
Yes.
sign for it?
Yep. All right. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Schultzberg made a motion, seconded by Mr. Greco. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.